Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 523 on Tuesday, the 2nd of May, 2023. Hello, I'm Alan. Yes, still no Andrew this week. Fingers crossed, back next week. I miss him, and the challenge is that the slot in which I have to record is pretty antisocial for other people, because it is right in the middle of the day when they're trying to actually do other work and proper grown-up, sensible stuff. So it's just easier to do it this way. I'm sorry. It does mean you get like sort of me for 35 minutes, which is bad enough for me, let alone you guys as well. Anyway, this week we'll be hearing about people pushing one another under the Dieselgate bus, finding out what a group hooning event is, and why motorway journeys provide valuable downtime. But let's start with some follow-up. And yes, the follow-up goes into that first story. It's sometimes described as a Continental executive. Automotive News Europe are describing them as a technical project manager, as yet unidentified. At Continental, has admitted to involvement in the Volkswagen diesel scandal and incriminated other defendants. German prosecutors told Reuters. This is from an Automotive News Europe story. Other accused individuals had contacted the prosecutor's office to make confessional statements, quote unquote, and 60 people are under investigation for aiding and abetting fraud, breach of trust, and aiding and abetting breach of trust, prosecutors said. Continental themselves have declined to comment. No doubt this one will rumble on. Frankly, it's such a juggernaut. We're going to have real trouble sort of trying to pull it back and constrain this particular one. One other piece of follow-up even. We covered a story a couple of months ago now about Jaguar and some folk in Sweden who were making vehicles incredibly similar to the Jaguar C-Type. It's a kind of strange one. We'll link in the show notes to an article by Mattias Malmsted, who is an IP lawyer in Sweden. And it's seen as a bit of a surprise that last week Jaguar lost a copyright infringement case against a number of defendants in Sweden concerning the C-Type. And they essentially said that the Swedish Patent and Marketing Appeal Court found that the high-class quality car manufacturer by passivity had granted consent to car replica manufacturers and manufacturers enthusiasts. So basically it's saying that because they didn't do anything for a long time about so many replicas of the C-Type, they can't suddenly start now. And that essentially gives a sort of worldwide ability for people to make things that look like a Jaguar C-Type. Yeah, but by just not stopping people in the past, they can't suddenly step in and start stopping people now. So it looks like we'll only be going back to the Jaguar of 34 years ago and not the Jaguar of 60-something years ago. That brings us to new news. There was a lot of stories last week, quite a lot of places covering it. The link in our show notes will be to a story from Top Gear magazine. And because the UK government is considering a graduated driver license program or similar. The headline line is should newly qualified under 25 drivers be banned from taking passengers, which of course sounds incredibly sounds like nobody under 25 will be able to drive with passengers in the car. It's not quite the way. When you read further into it, that's not really what they're saying. They're discussing whether newly qualified drivers should be restricted from carrying younger passengers, but that would be for the first year, the first 18, not until, not from the age of 18 through until 25, which is kind of how it's implied. So the idea is trying to make sure that there's a graduated license. It's not an unusual thing to have, really, globally. I mean, it's a new thing for the UK, so therefore it is a shock to the system. But here in Massachusetts, there's a similar rule until whilst you're, I think it's for a year. It's a year or 18 months after you've passed your once you've actually got your license. If you're a younger driver, then you're not allowed to carry any passengers who aren't members of your family. So you are allowed to carry family members. So you can deliver your brother or your sister or whatever. or your mum from one place to another. Supposedly what happens then is that whenever the police stop younger drivers and the car's full of kids, all of a sudden people have an awful lot of cousins. And then that's quite hard to try to sort out. But this is not an unusual thing. Do I think it's a good idea? It probably is, to be honest. It gets rid of that somebody goading the other one on. The downside is, of course, that it goes against all these net zero and fewer people using cars and all that kind of stuff, because quite often you end up with, if two friends want to go somewhere, then they have to take two cars. And that becomes a little bit, that can become it just adds congestion to the roads. But, and I don't know if that stops them goading each other on either, if there's two friends with two cars. But it's probably less so than, one sitting beside the other going, oh, I could do this corner at 50, type of thing. So interesting one. I do think there should be some kind of further learning period. I mean, it's not as if you pass your test and then you're Arivatanen or anything. You do need some time after passing the test to actually learn how to drive properly on the road and interact with other road users and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. Just see. Anyway, next story. Queensland passes the strictest anti-HOON laws in Australia, says Jalopnik. Spectators could earn a $6,000 fine for attending an illegal street event. That's 6,000 Australian dollars, so about a tenner. No, that's not true. Australian police are well known for their understanding and lenient manner in which they deal with motorists. Oh no, it's the opposite. Australian police are known for being completely and totally inflexible and not at all a pleasure to deal with, should you ever have to. Queensland is now introduced these anti-HOON laws. So the first question is, what is hooning? Sound like some judge. Who are the Beatles? So it is illegal street racing, drifting, and burnout events. I think the key there is illegal. It doesn't just mean that because you're going for a slightly 7/10 drive along a nice road, that is not what they're classing as hooning here. It is illegal gatherings and events. So part of this is that it's now going to be an offence to organise, promote, participate in one. It's going to be illegal to have license plates in the car that they're registered to, even if they're not on display, which is kind of funny because it means that right at the minute, if my car was in Queensland, it would be illegal because I've got to spare a second set of license plates sitting in the seat pockets. It's drivers and spectators here can be fined up to $6,000. If you're caught behind the wheel, you can face additional punishment, which includes up to a year in prison, a loss of license, and/or your car being scrapped as well. Not just that, but if your vehicle is there, and I don't know how this is done, I don't know if it's via GPS or whatever, then you'll have to prove that you weren't driving the vehicle when the offence was committed. There we go. In Queensland, the new laws have been registered owners of cars detected attending HOON must prove that they were not driving the vehicle when the offence was committed. So if you take your mum or dad's car, they're going to have to prove that it wasn't them doing it. I think that's where that one is going. So there we go. On the flip side, of course, Queensland, you don't have to have an annual roadworthiness test. So you could be driving any old knackered thing on the road. Interesting one there. We'll see. I mean, it depends how much of an issue illegal street racing and stuff is wherever you are. I don't really intend on attending one, so it's not one that's going to be hitting me at any time in the near future. Anyway, back to the UK, and Arnold Clark's going to be creating an EV charging network with £23 million rapid charger investment. So this is going to comprise of two things by the looks of it. The first of which is Arnold Clark have sites all around the country. Some of those sites spend some time not actually generating any money at night. I was going to say over the weekends, but that's not true. At night and at times when the dealership part is closed. So the aim of the initial aim of this is to install around 560, 150 kilowatt rapid charge points. The idea is to put 4 to 8 charge points at 80 dealership locations across the UK. The idea is that as much as possible, this charge network will run 24/7. You'll be able to book sessions at the charge points via an app, and it'll be possible to get access to the sites via an ANPR activated barrier system. So you'll be able to book ahead, know that there'll be availability, and then have access, have sort of controlled access to it, which should help with safety amongst other things. I think that's. I'm always loath to say this about Arnold Clark, but I think that sounds like a pretty good idea. I mean, the idea is to have it stretching from Inverness to Southampton. I imagine they'll start off with dealerships along the main sort of trunk routes. So the chief executive, Eddie Hawthorne, is saying that whilst they don't know what the charging rates are going to be yet, they do want to undercut the rate offered by other charging providers. He says, I look at some providers who charge a £2 connection fee, then 70 pence per kilowatt hour and £40 if you overstay your welcome. I'm not into that. We want to do things differently, so we'll just see what happens there. Also worth mentioning, and possibly related to this, is that Arnold Clark has just bought an East Kilbride-based startup called Bumblebee for initial investment of £2.5 million. Bumblebee lets the idea is that it facilitates the installation of community shared EV charge points in flats and housing developments. So it may well be that the two are linked, and some of that technology about being able to book a slot, all that kind of stuff, may well come through from Bumblebee. So that's quite interesting, that one. I think it's going to be. We've seen the kind of pioneer "we are just an EV charging networks," and I think that it's going to be interesting to see situations like this where you've got a dealer network and it's expanding what it does. It's quite a big add-on to the business model, really. But I think it's interesting that they're even trying. The little rendering up the top, which shows no sign of a dealership at all in the background anywhere, does show a number of bays with roofs and lighting and stuff. So we'll see what happens, and just whether or not it is one or two pillars hidden around the back of a dealership, or whether it is an inviting-looking place to be able to stop. Makes a lot of sense to have it near your dealerships, of course, because people have to park for 20 minutes, half an hour. They're probably close to 20 minutes, but hey, they're at your dealership. They'll probably want to go in, have a walk around, have a little bit of a look at what's on show, and you know, it's possibly a way of driving traffic towards the dealership. Be interesting to see what happens late at night, though, and what there is still available at that point when there isn't someone trying to sell you a Nissan Leaf or something. Just Eat is to switch its entire corporate sales fleet to electric vehicles by 2025. We've all heard of Just Eat. It is an app which lets us order food. The sales team goes out. The idea is that they visit and engage with more than 68,000 restaurants and grocery stores around the UK. And it's switching its 175-strong diesel fleet to EVs, obviously to bid to reduce emissions. It'll have been completely done by 2025. First 12 are already purchased and on the road, and they will all be of Cupra Borns and Volkswagen IDs. One of the reasons they were chosen was for their long range of more than 260 miles. That's a move. I think it's a move we're seeing more and more. A couple of reasons. Partly, it looks really good on all your environmental policies. Also, there's a better choice of EVs appearing nowadays, which meet more and more needs, I suppose. And last but not least, it's good for the benefit in kind as well. If you have a diesel vehicle, it can fairly hit you in the pocket. As much as anywhere else. Guilt Minute, the quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel the Motoring Podcast worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all that, and some of you do, so thank you very much, then the last thing you can do is recommend us to your friends or colleagues. So let's move into new car news. Aura, makers of the Funky Cat, have confirmed that their largest saloon, a Model 3 rival that has the optional four-wheel drive and over 300 miles of range, will be making it to the UK. Currently, it's called the Good Cat in China. This is the model that I jokingly said on Twitter would be called the. It hadn't been. I think it was it Funky GNU or something I chose? I don't know. GNUs are always funny, that's why. It's just a funny word. So yes, as a Tesla Model 3, Hyundai Ioniq 6 rival, it's called the Good Cat in China, where it's been on sale since late last year. But they're probably going to change it. The name is going to be announced at a later date. Orders will open at the start of 2024. There'll be 2 battery sizes and 2 and all-wheel drive. The most powerful version puts out 394 brake horsepower, 501 pound-foot of torque, and it'll do 0 to 62 in 4.4 seconds because that's really important to everyone. It will feature a range of over 300 miles WLTP. It's got all the stuff you'd expect. Massive screen, Face ID opening. Oh, goodness. I'm so glad Andrew's not here for this bit. Opening and starting, and a panoramic sunroof, ambient lighting, synthetic seats. It's funny to see that now. I'd rather have cloth, thanks. Heated, ventilated seats, massage function also available later, and all sorts of things like that. Pricing similarly hasn't been announced, but the Funky Cat, which is smaller, is £32,000. So I would imagine this one's going to be mid-40s, I would say. Other new news, the Suzuki Jimny. Yay! Everybody loves the Suzuki Jimny. It has many flaws, but it has an awful lot of character. Twisted Automotive. So Twisted are well known for putting the wrong engines in Land Rover Defenders. Wrong engines, very nice interiors, and somehow making sure they don't just fall off the road. They're going to start offering a conversion on the latest Suzuki Jimny. So this is going to be the first one they ever do, which isn't based on the Land Rover Defender. It should be great. I mean, they're going to add soundproofing. They're going to upgrade the stereo, the audio system, the whole interior. It's going to be better handling, better power. I just think it sounds great. It's all going to be based on obviously the light commercial vehicle, but it's still going to come in at around £50,000 plus VAT, and this is plus VAT because it's still a commercial vehicle. It should be a lot of fun. So that's one to keep an eye on. I mean, it is frankly pointless, but that doesn't mean I don't love it. I think that's really cute, really fun. I'm really interested to see what they do with it. I'm one of these people who'd much rather have a Jimny than a Defender. So yeah, I love it. And the one that they've got that's showing in the pictures on the Motoring Research site with the black 5 spokes and the roof tray and everything is just pretty cool. So yay! So before we get to lunchtime read, we're going to take a quick detour via the designer's mood board. And Tobias SÜhLMANN, who we spoke about a very little while ago, has already left Bentley and will be joining McLaren as the Chief Design Officer. SÜhLMANN will be start his new role in September. Obviously, there must be a period of, quite a long period of gardening leave in there. But he'll fill in, which means it's been over a year since Rob Melville left to head for a Saudi Arabian EV startup. Yes, so that again leaves an empty slot at Bentley. It really is sort of senior automotive designers are being shuffled around like nobody's business right at the minute. So we'll see what happens, how long it takes before Bentley announce the next one. I don't know. Let's just see. Lunchtime read this week comes from Fleet World editor at large and also motoring podcast sometimes guest host Alex Grant, and he's taking a few minutes to explain to explain just why he feels that the time that you spent disconnected from Tinternet and the socials and work and everything whilst you're driving is a good thing for you. And also how worrying it is that people just seem to be breaking that down. Worth having a read. It's 3 or 4 minutes of your time. It's a really good piece, as pieces from Alex invariably are. This week's list of the week is from Top Gear, and it's 10 things you need to go off-road. This might be slightly self-serving, having just bought an off-roader. It's 10 things. It's by Tom Ford, who, of course, well known for sticking lights and crazy stuff on things. But yeah, it's a good list. It covers the right kind of stuff. Some of it's a little bit excessive, maybe, for a quick green lane through the Welsh mountains. But yeah, some of it is still pretty relevant. I mean, I have carried sand ladders through Wales, and I haven't used them, so I'll be a little bit quiet about that. But if I've got to choose one thing, I'm going to say ropes and anchors and shackles. Really, they are the most important thing for when you inevitably get stuck, and then it happens. I mean, I even once got the Vehicross stuck. So yes. So there's a list of 10 things. I wouldn't say you needed all of them. I am thinking of getting one of number 9 though, just because that lets me drive on the beach at Cape Cod. So and I don't want to try that. I think that'll be fun. So yes, 10 things you need to go off road from Top Gear. We'll round off this week with the and finally, and it comes from BBC News. And drivers in Carmarthenshire, in rural Carmarthenshire, are being warned to remove dentures because of potholes. A group of residents who live along a rural road, which is just nothing but pothole, have put up some signs. And the signs read, "Caution, remove dentures, adjust bra straps, secure your nuts. Welcome to the worst maintained road in the county, courtesy of Carmarthenshire County Council." So what they're doing, obviously the sign is on private land, not on council land. And so, of course, what they're doing is basically trying to shame with humour the council into doing stuff. So we hope that this will help, and it will mean that the council restores a safe surface. So yes, we'll see how that gets on. If there are any updates, we shall be the podcast that shares them with you. That brings us to the end of this week. Thank you for suffering me for whatever it's going to be, 20-something minutes. Again this week. I mean, fingers crossed that Andrew can actually speak again by next week. I mean, it must be great for his family, but I'm really kind of missing him. Don't tell him I said that. But yeah. Hopefully he'll be back next week again. In the meantime, don't forget that between now and then, you can give us any feedback, share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. To get in touch with me, it's best to use Twitter or occasionally Mastodon, where I'm at AJP Bradley. That's Bradley. To get in touch with Andrew, search for Crack Windscreen on Twitter and similarly on Mastodon. We'll hopefully both be back soon, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley. The person who's not here has been Andrew Close, and safe motoring.